Great. Welcome everyone to the Town of Greater Napanee regular session of council for the 14th day of April 2026. Just before we call the meeting to order, I just want to remind everyone that this evening's meeting is being live streamed via our YouTube channel. So welcome to the folks that are here in the body of our council chambers. Welcome to those that are home watching this evening, and welcome to those that will watch us at a later date. Having said that, we'll start the meeting off with our opening proceedings, which is the playing of the national anthem. I'd ask those in attendance to stand, face the flag, and I'll ask to remove any headwear that you have, and we'll play our national anthem. Great, thanks everyone. It's always a pleasure, and it's always sometimes a mystery when we get started. So thanks for everybody that took part on that. We'll start this evening meeting off with our closed session rise and report. So we'll look for a motion to rise and report from closed session. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, second by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. And we'll look for a number of motions from the rise and report. The first matter is confidential SR 1233-2026 failed tax property. Look for a motion that council receive for information the confidential SR 1233-2026 failed tax sale property report, and further that council direct and authorize staff to proceed with option 3 as outlined in the report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, second by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion carried. Next matter was confidential SR 12780-2026 Senior of the Year nominations. And the recommendation for that matter was that council receive for information the confidential SR 1278-2026 Senior of the Year nominations report, and further that council direct staff to submit the 2026 nomination as directed in closed session. Moved by Councillor Shank, second by Councillor Davey. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. And finally, confidential SR 1287-2026 land sale, former Suddard lands. Recommendation, the confidential SR 1287-2026 land sale, former Suddard lands, and further that to receive that, and further that council authorize and direct staff to proceed with the direction as given in closed session. Moved by Councillor Davey, second by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Now we'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented for the 14th day of April 2026. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, second by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Deputations. Scheduled deputations due items. I don't believe we have any. Deputations items on the agenda. I don't believe we have any. And correspondence items on the agenda. I don't believe we have any of those. Unfinished business. I don't believe we have any unfinished business, which gets us right directly into our administrative consent agenda. First matter on that is council minutes, special session of council, March 20th, 2026, and the regular session of council, March 24th, 2026. Is there anything in those minutes anyone would like to speak to? Seeing none, committee minutes, Recreation Advisory Committee, Arts Advisory Committee, Market Square Advisory Committee, and the Municipal Heritage Committee. Is there anything in those committee minutes that anyone would like to bring attention to or speak to? Seeing none. Correspondence for information. We've got a number of correspondence for information items dated April 14th. There's anything in those correspondence anyone would like to pull out and have a chat about? Seeing none. Boards and advisory committees monthly report for April 2026. Is there anything in that report that anyone would like to highlight or speak to? Seeing none. Executive services acquisition of cemetery site CM-2004768. Is there anything in that report that anyone had any questions or would like to highlight? Seeing none. Financial and IT services report 2026 court security prison transfer grant. Is there anything in that report that anyone would like to speak to or ask any questions about? Seeing none. Closed session direction, former Suddard subdivision offers to purchase review. Is there anything in that open session report that anyone had any questions or comments about? Seeing none. And finally, growth and infrastructure proposed increases to the municipal planning application fees. Is there anything in that report that anyone had any questions or comments about? Seeing none. So we will look for a motion that council consent to the approval of the following routine items: the minutes of the special session of council dated March 20th, 26, and the regular session of council dated March 24th, 2026 be adopted as presented, that the Recreation Advisory Committee, Arts Advisory Committee, Market Square Advisory Committee, and the Municipal Heritage Committee minutes of February 17th through March 31st, 2026 be received for information, that the correspondence for information items dated April 14th, 2026 be received, that council receive for information the boards and advisory committee's monthly report for April 2026, that council receive for information the executive services acquisition of cemetery site CM-2004768 report, and further that council authorize the acquisition of the land associated to the cemetery site CM-2004768 being Part 1 and Part 6 on Plan 29R5216, and authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute any agreements or documentations required to facilitate the transfer, and further that council direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to finalize the land transfer. The council receive for information the financial and IT services report 2026 court security prison transfer grant report, and further that council direct the unbudgeted court security and prison transfer grant funds of $97,136 to be transferred to the General Stabilization Reserve. That council receive for information the closed session direction former Suddard subdivision offers to purchase review report. That council receive for information the growth and infrastructure proposed increases to municipal planning application fees report, and further that council support the proposed planning application fee increases as presented through the attached bylaw. Moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. That gets us right up into items for discussion. Executive Services, Alto HSR consultation follow-up report. And Mr. Grant, I think you're going to speak to that.
I am, and thank you, Your Worship, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council. As council will recall, we staff and I personally was directed to attend the March 26 Alto stakeholder consultation meetings to get more information and to understand what we could about the project. I appreciate members of council have been getting lots of inquiries related to this, and you have been waiting for more information from staff, and this is that report. So on March 26, I personally attended those consultations. At the meeting, we were provided with an overview of the project. We were asked several questions on how, not if, the project could be constructed in a way that would benefit us, and also confirmed that the decision on whether they would go with the northern or southern routes in our portion of Eastern Ontario will be decided in 2027. And that our feedback and those of other Eastern Ontario communities will inform how and not if the project is built. Just by way of overview, the high-speed rail project from Alto is being overseen by Alto, which is a crown corporation of the federal government. They report to Parliament through the Minister of Transportation. They have a mandate to deliver this project. They don't have a mandate to decide if the project is being delivered. That is a point they made fairly clearly at the consultation meeting. It was a point that was raised several times by members that attended, and they indicated that any decisions on alteration of the route or whether or not the project would proceed belongs to the Minister of Transportation for the Government of Canada. The HSR, the Alto HSR project, is listed on the Government of Canada's Major Projects Office page as a priority, along with pipelines, nuclear power plants, mining projects, ports, and infrastructure in Canada's far north. As Council may be aware, the Prime Minister has launched the projects, the Major Projects Office, and this is, in the Prime Minister's words, something to insulate the country from the challenges we're having with the United States in terms of a de facto trade war that we're in, looking for economic diversification and looking for a catalyst for investment. The initial projects on that list, including the Alto high-speed rail project, were selected because they were in progress. And what they have elected to do is try to streamline approvals and move investment into these projects as far as they can, as fast as they can, to initiate investment in the nation. To date, hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent on the project, which aims to connect Quebec City to Toronto with dedicated stops in Trois-Rivières, Laval, Montreal, Ottawa, and Peterborough. The train will span 1,000 kilometers and is projected to travel at speeds of up to 300 kilometers an hour. Initial estimates are between $60 and $90 billion to build. In going to these consultations and listening to Alto and the people that were there and doing the research that I've done, it is my sincere assessment that they intend to build this thing. We're not being asked for consent, and nobody is. We're being asked about when they build this, what things should they consider and what kind of economic benefits do communities want? Those are the questions they were asking. And when I take a look at the level of investment and the number of projects that are on the Major Projects page and the investment strategy from the Prime Minister's office, it is to inspire investment confidence. So I don't see them walking away from that. And that is just my honest assessment. And hearing them speak about major projects within the nation, they are looking to spur investor confidence that waned with things like pipeline projects in the West Coast that sort of saw investment leave the country. So whenever I hear them speak about major projects, that's the context they're speaking in. And so when Alto talked about how and not if, and the Prime Minister's office talks about we will move faster than ever before, I believe them. I do. And I don't have an opinion on it one way or the other. That's just my assessment of the situation that we're in. So in the March 26th consultation, it was in Harold Smith, and at that meeting, as directed by council, both in writing and verbally, the Alto representatives were provided with a list of all of our community concerns as they were presented to us. They were also provided with the alternative for high frequency rail that was presented to members of town council shortly before that meeting occurred. They are very clear that the feedback that we have received as a council, you have received as a council, and we as an organization, that we haven't received any support from the community members. We haven't. And so they have a copy of the concerns that we have received. And at the roundtables discussions that we had, that was also provided to them and to the note takers. So the concerns, at a high level that they were provided, concerns over fragmentation of transportation corridors and farms, impeding, emergency services and their ability to respond, loss of habitats for species at risk, including the Frontenac Arch biosphere, of which is in the southern route, expropriation concerns and concerns around personal and economic loss, the financial burden the project will place on taxpayers, current and future, and concerns that the consultation timelines were insufficient. Just on the consultation timeline specifically, their response to that was they wanted to consult early before decisions were made and therefore don't have a number of answers at this point in time, but they did and do intend to do further consultations, particularly when the route selection has occurred. So, for example, if they were to choose the northern route, we would no longer be consulted because we're no longer impacted. If they were to choose a southern route, we would be subject to future consultations and discussions on community benefit and the like. The major takeaways that I got from that consultation is the first decisions on the rail corridor location and routing will occur at the end of 2026 and will involve the route portion between Ottawa and Montreal. That is what they're going to focus on as their first priority, and they're looking to narrow the corridor, and that's where they're placing their focus. And while they're building out that section of the rail, they'll start moving over to other projects to work on, assessments. They're in the consultation phase with us and others now, and so, but they're going to focus their first and greatest efforts in that section of the proposed route, is what they told the members of the stakeholder group. No routing decisions have been made between northern and southern options, and those are not anticipated until sometime in 2027. Once a decision has been made between northern and southern corridors, they're going to go from what is now a wide multi-kilometer corridor, and they're going to go down to 1 kilometer. Then they're going to go down to 60 meters. And what they told us in terms of how they're going to make those decisions is through the consultations they get, what some of the discussions in terms of land purchases and that sort of thing look like. They indicated that although federal legislation allows for expropriation right away, that it is their intention to go through negotiations first. The more detailed consultations would also talk about community benefits. What kind of community benefit agreements would people be looking like, or would look like? What are the infrastructure discussions and concerns that local municipalities would have? And they are very clear on transportation infrastructure and the concerns we have there. If private land is needed, as mentioned, they'll use expropriation as a last resort, so they said. They're seeking to use local suppliers located along the final route whenever construction occurs. They expect 51,000 workers on the construction phase, of which they're looking to partner with educational institutions to train up individuals who may be able to work on that project. They talked about making use of local, and by local I mean Canadian resources such as steel, for the construction of rails and cars and that sort of thing. They would work with local municipalities on remediation, impacted infrastructure, and community benefits, as I mentioned. So most of the discussions at those consultations, they were how discussions. They were impact discussions, and they were talking about their schedule. They weren't talking about if, they were talking about when. So if there is a decision to move in a different direction, that would come from, the government of Canada. And so if we are looking for updates on the future of the project, such as would another stop be added, that would be a government decision. At this point, there is no direction to add another stop anywhere on that route. So it is with the above in mind that, I take it as a given to take the Prime Minister of Canada and also at their word that they're going to build this thing, and they intend to build the major projects as they intended to do. Given the climate and the economic climate that we're in, and as mentioned by some members of the federal government, the nation's at risk of losing its standard of living. It's just where we're at. With inflation and unemployment and trade discussion or trade issues, And so the major concern is if there is a major impact to our trading relationship with the United States, we're going to lose a lot of income and we're going to be in a very tough spot and we need to diversify quickly. So with that context in mind, my recommendations are to express support for nation building projects and for diversifying and protecting the Canadian economy. That is both the message from the Prime Minister. It has been the message from the Premier. The express support for Alto's northern route as an option. And the reason is this. It's not so much that I support the route per se. It's that if you're going to pick a route, that is the most direct route. It is the fastest route. It would be the lowest long-term operating cost. It would be higher to construct. And that is the issue there. It would also go through a less populated area and have a lower overall impact on population. Not no impact, a lower impact. And that's why I have that recommendation. And recommend that the Government of Canada commit to increasing the frequency of Via Rail service that is currently offered and or working with the Government of Ontario to extend GO train service from Oshawa to Kingston. So as an operating rail line, the Alto high-speed rail service as designed does not benefit this region from a transportation perspective. It is not going to stop here. It is going to stop in Peterborough. So if it was going to stop, say, in a Kingston, maybe different routing makes sense. But in the absence of that, I think it's the most direct route. Send a letter to Canada's Minister of Transportation with the town's ultimate recommendation, as council will see fit after the discussions, as well as alternatives the town has received for high-frequency rails, similar to what we sent to Alto, and both verbally communicated to them, and decline the opportunity to sign a joint letter with other municipalities, as it may not completely align with the town's position. If council has a different perspective, happy to hear it, happy to answer any questions. And so this is based on all of the facts that I could gather. I also appreciate in council's decision, you are to receive the facts and the background from us, and also the perspective of citizens and your constituents. And you have to put those together to make a decision. That's a difficult one. And I appreciate that. Mine was the easier of the tasks, which was to provide you a report with recommendations solely based on the information I collected through research and my participation. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Grant. And don't underestimate the importance of your position and the job that we've tasked you with, because sometimes the most difficult thing to do is to suggest the reality of what's going on here. So, and we do appreciate that. So, council, we'll start off with Councillor Shank.
First of all, I'd like to say, well, thank you very much, Matthew, because it was a great report that, you got the facts and everything else. But I think we should table this until the next meeting, because I know Angela's definitely against it and Bob's not here, right? Also, so it could be a unanimous vote, or at least they give the opportunity for those people, those councillors who have the vote. All I can say is I'm definitely against it for numerous reasons. Not because a lot of people don't want it, but the cost benefit analysis for this, and it's straight politics. Where's the liberal stronghold? There it is. Where's the conservative stronghold? And they're just going right straight through, even if you use the political end of it. But looking at the other end of it is that if you're a dairy farmer along 417, or you're going from Ottawa to Montreal, and a third of your farm is going to go right through the middle of it, and they're saying every 24 to 30 kilometers there's going to be a bypass or underpass. So I, myself being a farmer, I would have to drive 30 kilometers basically from my place to Napanee to get to the back of the farm and back again. So $90 billion, if you had, even if the Canada had $90 billion to spend, wouldn't you spend it on, a refinery? If we have all these minerals, but, they make a lot more money on a $1.80 a liter gas. Everybody goes to the grocery store to get their groceries. All the groceries go there by diesel trucks. All right. Being a farmer, I know how many thousands of liters I went through of diesel, and what's that going to be cost? So the cost of food is going to go up. And who put us in this position to begin with? It was with the federal government and with their policies of done. So when it's done and finally the barn's starting to crumble, then they're going to come up with an idea of this to benefit who? How is that going to benefit or go ahead? And VIA has a hard enough time breaking even as it is. So Dr. Giselle went ahead and gave us an excellent alternative here. So why don't they go ahead and do stuff like this? Then they go ahead and if we have all this natural gas and everything else, why aren't we making our own fertilizer, all right, to go ahead and do the thing? But no, we can buy it from another country and pay the tariff and everything else. If we have all the natural resources that they tote and say that we have, why wouldn't you be a little bit more integrated and benefit everybody? Because everybody drives a vehicle to get, because Canada is so vast, and use the money a lot more appropriately. But let alone what the cost of fuel and cost of everything else is going up. And we can only pay so many taxes. Now, they've taxed us on everything that you could possibly go for, but now you're going to spend $90 billion. And when has the government, federal government, all right, ever came in under budget? You know, maybe I'm wrong, guys, but I've been around for a while, but I have never seen anything like that. And to come up with an idea like this, wouldn't you want to benefit everybody in Canada? You help the West to refine into some of the oil that they have, some of the other raw materials we have that we could go ahead and do ourselves, supply our own fertilizer for the farms, all right, that we're using. It makes our costs are a lot less. And if people have more money in their pockets, they would actually spend more money. But when you have a government, when somebody, this is politics now, and I might as well vent while I'm raving here. If you can go ahead and people elect an individual and a party, and then that individual can just go, no, I'm going to switch parties and jump the other side. And there's no recourse. You basically took the right of every individual that voted for that person right out. So where's the democracy in that? And if they don't change that, if somebody wants to do that, you hold a by-election, all right? If you're so confident in the party. But to take the right of that individual to vote is basically a slam against anybody that in a democracy that has the right to vote. How can you complain that nobody votes? Then that one individual could say, you know, I got wine and dine on the other side. I'm going to jump parties just because I didn't do it. You know, that's just not right. So they've got a lot more serious problems, but spending $90 billion this way, I find it basically an affront to anybody's intelligence. But that's my own opinion. I rent it, and I'd just like to make sure it's tabled so the other two people can go ahead and vote.
Thanks, Councillor Shank. And yeah, we probably, I didn't want to interrupt you because you're on a roll, but we probably should stay focused as to where we need to stay focused. But I'm going to give council an opportunity to speak tonight, and then we'll see whether we want to come up with a resolution tonight or not. And you're absolutely right. We've got two members of council that are on a well-deserved vacation. But I think you know, this subject matter is important enough that you know, we've got to where we got to being one group. I think we should need to get to the rest to the finish line as one group as well. So I'll go around the council chamber or the horseshoe and see who wants to go next. So Councillor David, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. Basically echo Councillor Shank's sentiment. I from the outset of this announcement, I have been against this economic, the community impact, environmental impact, take your pick. I don't want to see my children burdened with the cost of operating a failing project. And that's, like you said, Councillor Shank, the math on it, they're talking 40, 50-year return if everything goes perfectly, you know, and that's a best case scenario. We know federal level, nothing's perfect, never has been, and it isn't going to be. This is going to be a blight on our country. I believe that. And I am wholeheartedly against this, but I also think that tabling it to the next meeting till we have a full staff here on council is a good idea. So that's where I'll leave that.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Davey. Deputy Mayor Calvin, then I'll go to Councillor Martin.
Thank you, through your worship. Matthew, this was a great report, and I appreciate all the work the staff has done to present it. We're not being told a lot, and what we're being told is very grim. I like a lot of your suggestions. Express support for nation building projects. I think that's great, diversifying and protecting the Canadian economy. I totally get that. I like that. I can't support a southern or northern route. I just can't do it. I also sit on county council, and I voted against the Alturo altogether. If we try to say, yeah, we support the northern route, well, we're hurting our northern part of our county. And if it was a lot further back north, I would have a different opinion on it. At this point, I mean, I like the idea of tabling it because we've got two counselors that aren't here that don't get to have their say and put in it. But I like to recommend that the government of Canada commit to increasing the frequency of via rail. I mean, that's a no-brainer. That could be easily done. And also work with the government of Ontario to extend the GO train service from Kingston, Napanee, or Oshawa to Kingston. That's a great idea too. I just can't accept the rest of it, unfortunately. And that's just my opinion. So I too feel it would be best to table it till we have the rest of council here and everybody can have their say and make a decision at that point.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calvert. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Matthew, I too applaud you for the work you put in on this, and I understand where you're coming from with all your input that you put into this. I still can't, and I don't really have a question for you, but I could not support this staff recommendation whatsoever, either north or south or anywhere. This also, it's just a no-brainer for me. I can't support it in any form. In fact, I'd be willing to support signing a joint letter opposing also in its entirety. But I do, like I say, I think that the time and effort you put into that is amazing, and it doesn't surprise me at all. knowing what you've done with other subjects, but I definitely will be not supporting the staff recommendation on this. As far as tabling it, I'd like to make a decision on it tonight, but if council so wishes to table it until the other two councilors are here, that's fine. We do know by their emails how they feel about it, so but I'm good either way. I'm either going to be against it tonight, or if you want to table it to another meeting, that's fine. But I would like to have be done with it, because I don't like putting things off like this, because it's just not wise to do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Martin. Appreciate that. Is there anything else? Seeing none, I just got a couple of questions, Matthew. Ultimately, the folks that are going to make this decision or have made this decision is the federal government. Am I correct with that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you're correct.
And through proxy, I guess, they've hired this Alto organization, and they've not provided any idea that there's a different course. And I don't mean north or south, but there's no other course that they're even considering at this point, but they probably will come back with further information at a later date.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, they have confirmed that this is, the loose route that they've selected is the route. The stops are the stops. The decision they'll make that affects us is northern or southern routes. And then from the current width, which I think is in the neighborhood of 20 to 40 kilometers, down to 1 kilometer, down to 60 meters. But they are working on direction from the federal government to deliver high-speed rail and not to see if it should be delivered.
Great. And I apologized that I asked the question that I knew the answer to, but I think it was important that it gets reiterated. And finally, with the northern route doesn't venture into any of the town of Greater Napanee. Am I correct with that? Even at its most southerly area. It doesn't venture into any of the town of Greater Napanee.
No, Mr. Mayor, it does not.
Okay, which takes me to my next question. Is it prudent for us to even weigh in on the northern route if it's not within our boundaries? And if, in fact, the information comes back through Alto at a later date that they've chosen the new northern boundaries, it sounds like we're going to be restricted and not have any say whatsoever as far as consultation goes, if that's the route that they're going to pick.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I would say the options that have been provided to the community or, Eastern Ontario are a northern and southern route. Is it prudent to weigh in on a route that doesn't affect us? I would say that is a decision for council and not for me. But what I can confirm is that if they choose a northern route, we will no longer be consulted on anything to do with Alto Rail whatsoever. So from that perspective, do they want our opinion on the northern route? No, Mr. Mayor, they do not.
Okay, those are the questions that I have at this point anyways. Council, I mean, we do have a staff recommendation, but we also are, I won't say short staff, but we've got two members of council that aren't here this evening. I'll put it out to you. What are your wishes? Did you wish to defer this to our next council meeting when we have a full slate and it gives the two members that aren't here an opportunity to get caught up, or did you want to try and deal with it this evening? Yep, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Well, the only reason why I suggested tabling it is because I know Councillor Hicks is definitely against it. I'm not sure about Bob. He's against it also, but all I'm saying is when you have a recorded vote that's unanimous against it, the federal government's going to do whatever they want, when they want and how they want. All right. But cohesively, if we all kind of stay together, if we all don't want it, if your neighbor was doing something that needed help, I believe in helping your neighbors. So yeah, that's the reason why I wait until the next council meeting. There's not going to be any rash decisions before that anyway. So you know what? Wait till the next council meeting. You ask for a recorded vote. Everybody can vote yay or nay, whichever way they want. And there you go.
Great. Go ahead, Mr. Grant.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, what I would add to that, Councillor Shank, is from speaking with council this evening, it is clear that, council wants to send the message that you're not interested in a northern or southern route, and that is your privilege. And whatever, council decides is the right answer. But I would say the benefit of deferring that is you may want to provide other alternatives. I know the deputy mayor mentioned that they were interested in maybe increasing via rail service or deciding they would like to have a different high frequency rail or extending the GO train. I would say the benefit of deferral is that if you wanted to decide what alternatives that you wanted to recommend, you may want your colleagues to weigh in on that because they may have some ideas, but I would suggest that it is fairly clear where council sits. I also received emails from the other council and council is clearly not in favor of northern or southern route, and that is your privilege. But if you wanted to have the discussion of alternatives, I think deferral is probably wise.
Yep, good, Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, one additional thing I will add is our office received a large volume of correspondence today on this matter. It was past our deadline for inclusion on this agenda as correspondence related to an agenda item because that cutoff deadline was yesterday. But if this was deferred, we would gather all of that correspondence and include it in the agenda package just for formal record keeping purposes as well, and any other correspondence that were to come in, although I believe it's all fairly consistent.
Great, thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you for mentioning that as well. So, go ahead, Mike.
The only reason why Matthew and Terry is that Dr. Tom Tizell went ahead and gave it an alternative what he could do with, maybe not a super high speed, but something going at 200 some kilometers an hour. And it made valid point of using the existing or another lane that is in the same area of what it is. All right. You would end up having more frequent stops or larger cities or whatever. But the point is that made more sense for the best bang for the buck. You wouldn't destroy as many people's properties and what they were doing. So if that wants to be discussed at the next meeting also, when you were asking alternatives, because I thought he had some very valid points, something that, yes, we disagree with this, but we should look this way here, guys. You know what I mean? So just another point.
Yeah, great. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's a piece of correspondence that'll be on tomorrow's county council meeting as well that suggests that if this rail line is going to be produced or built one way or the other, there is a suggestion that there would be an option to put some form of a trail associated to it on the outside of the fence. It's something that I didn't think of, but I mean, if we're looking for benefits from something that very few people have liked so far, it may help to join communities together, whether it be and I'm not saying a walking trail. It could be it's just a path. If they're gonna clear land and put a rail line in, what are we gonna get out of it, right? So it's kind of a neat, novel concept which I hadn't seen, and I've done a lot of reading on this stuff over the last few weeks. But it may be another option that if we're not going to have a whole lot of choice on this, then what can we get out of it that will benefit the municipalities that it's going to affect? So that's something that, like I say, we can bring back in 2 weeks as well. So having said that, is it council's will to defer this for 2 weeks until for a resolution upon the return of the other two members of council that are here this evening? And you're going to make that by way of to note and receive and to defer until our next regular session of council.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Shank. Is that something that you have you can help us out with, Madam Clerk, or is that sufficient enough?
Yeah, through your worship, I believe council is looking to defer a motion regarding the Alto High-Speed Rail project to April 28th meeting to allow all members of council to vote on the motion.
Perfect. Moved by Councillor Shank. Do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there any further comments, questions, concerns this evening with respect to the report and the presentation we've received from Mr. Grant? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Moving on. We've got update on regional transit discussions, and you're going to be dealing with that one as well?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll be here for a little while. So in 2025, council will recall they endorsed the concept of on-demand transit if and when the town decides to get into the transit business. For those that may not be familiar with on-demand transit, picture a minivan or a bus that operates somewhat like an Uber, where people share rides for a subsidized cost, and it can be routed anywhere. In 2025, council directed staff to speak with surrounding municipalities to see if there was an interest in a regional approach. Look for cost sharing, joint opportunities, that sort of thing. And so what I can confirm is I have discussed this topic with a number of surrounding municipalities, Deseronto, Prince Edward County, Belleville, Kingston, South Frontenac, Loyalist. There is an interest in regional transit services, from both municipalities to the east and the west. Many of the municipalities are well ahead of Greater Napanee on their transit journey. So it would be a matter of us trying to integrate into existing systems or initiatives or different partnerships that are underway. Currently, as it stands, Belleville has its own transit system, including an on-demand component, and is exploring ways to connect to other municipalities, including Greater Napanee. and to further integrate with Prince Edward County that also has a limited transit system with connections into Belleville. Prince Edward County is operated by a third-party provider, and they're looking at options to expand that system. The city of Kingston has its own transit system. They've extended on a pilot basis into Amherst View, partnership that started as a pilot, but they're looking to make that permanent, and is engaged in an effort to extend its offerings to more rural areas of Kingston and elsewhere by an on-demand transit system. And Loyalist Township has a transit line that connects to Kingston, Route 10, and they're also looking to extend that to Bath and Odessa. And Loyalist is currently looking to apply for an Ontario Transportation Infrastructure Fund grant. We did explore the opportunity of is there the ability for them to have a grant and give us the opportunity to step into a project through the granting process, and the Ontario government wants, they don't want any ifs. This is the project, and that's what they're going to fund. So that's not an option for us, but we have willing partners if and when we're ready to engage in that. And so there's various different ways we could look at it. In the discussions, certainly Belleville was talking about, entering into a feasibility study so we could see what we're talking about. There already has been a form of feasibility study in communities to the east of us, including South Frontenac and Kingston. I believe Loyalist was also part of that. So we would likely have a component of that we would have to invest in at some point. Those feasibility studies also assist with grant applications and the like. They want to know that you've done a bit of your homework. So that's what that would likely look like. So with that in mind, I have a few recommendations for council to consider. That you receive the regional transit discussion update reports, that we delay any future consideration of regional transit at least until 2027, outside of any decision to engage in a feasibility study if that opportunity arises. But this is a long conversation, I would suggest, and maybe not one that you want to get into at the end of a mandate. I think it's more a beginning of a mandate project, candidly. And that you do direct us, though, to bring back a report for consideration if the option of a feasibility study from some of our partners comes up, and there might be an opportunity that's time dependent for us to bring that back to you for consideration. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there any questions, comments, concerns from Mr. Grant with respect to the report or the presentation he's provided to us this evening? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Gower.
I was just going to move staff recommendation.
Okay, just give me a sec. I got a quick question, then I'll come back to you. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Grant, in the last provincial budget, there was upwards, and I'm sure Ms. Hamill can correct me if I'm wrong, but upwards of $30 million that the provincial government's going to commit to transportation in rural communities. And I think they even mentioned on-demand type of transit. Can we add to your recommendation that we also investigate or inquire to see if there's any granting or funding from our provincial partners that can be focused on transit in rural communities? Because I think, and I could be wrong, but I think it was in around $30 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to look into that. My understanding from meetings, it was closer to the $5 million range for OTIF, but there might be other buckets that people hadn't thought of. So we could certainly take a look at what options are available to invest in a pilot here of some nature. So we can certainly take a look at that and come back to you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I just would hate to not take advantage of some funding from our provincial partners if there's buckets of cash that may help us either in a feasibility study or maybe another pilot project that we can maybe go in a different direction than the last one that we did. So I would suggest that we add that to the recommendation, Madam Clerk, if you could do that for me, and we'll see where it goes. Sorry? Yes, Deputy Mayor Carroll, we'll go back to you with respect to the motion, and would you agree with adding a clause or a sentence in there that would suggest maybe investigating possible funding as a result of this last provincial budget?
Yes, I would accept that.
Madam Clerk, so you have what you need, and do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Shank. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Garber. Thank you, Councillor Shank. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Executive Services, 1388 Bridge Street injunction, and we're going to put you to work again, Mr. Grant, so whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the next report I have, council will be familiar with, and we've actually been in court over. So by way of reminder, 1388 Bridge Street. We have been to that address on many occasions, both with the fire department, bylaw services, public works. We have met with the owner of the property, both myself, I believe the general manager of growth and infrastructure, the fire chief, bylaw services. This has been a multi-year project to try to achieve compliance on a site that is woefully out of compliance from both zoning, property maintenance, and yards. The property itself has numerous trailers and cinder block structures that people are living in and have been for some time. Some of them receive housing supports from the government to live there, which my understanding legally is as long as you have an address, you're eligible for funding. At one point, the fire department went in with a warrant and removed wood structures from some of the buildings that were there because they were unsafe, and candidly, we were worried they were going to burn to the ground. So we removed them with a warrant, and we took them with us. You know, when we went there, there has been animals on the loose. There's been construction materials. There's been empty propane canisters. There is a deep suspicion of human waste that is pervasive because there isn't a large degree of septic that we're aware of, nor is there water and sewer out to that location. Candidly, it is unfit and it is unsafe for people to live at. It just is. We did meet, and I invited the property owner to my office about a year ago, prior to filing court action. And I let the individual know, along with the fire chief under no uncertain terms, what comes next if they were not to make any efforts to get into compliance. So, you know, we were very fair and did our best, but we had to go to court and for a cost of $22,000, which took several months. And we were recently awarded an injunction. So the injunction states that the owner of the property has until June 1st to remove all trailers from the property, obtain permits for the Quonset hut and cinder block sheds or remove them, remove all garbage, refuse, and construction materials, and cease all occupation or residing in the trailers or cinder block shed by that date. The order also states, the injunction also states that if that is not achieved by June 1st, on June 2nd, the town of Greater Napanee has the legal right to go in and to do it ourselves and to bill the property owner so it does not fall on the taxpayer. The conservative cost estimate from staff that has been on site, had drone footage, and through frequent investigation, this is going to be well north of $50,000. Well north. It also candidly exceeds our ability to go in and clean it up because we're not in the business of removing hazardous waste. and we believe it's there. Flammable materials, all kinds of stuff. Like, this is going to be a big job, but it's also a necessary job from our perspective and from the court's perspective. After receiving the injunction, I did reach out to Pellis to encourage them to work with anyone that they encounter on the site. They work with homeless individuals or people that are living in those kinds of environments, just to let them know that this is coming, because I don't know that the property owner is going to do that. We also reached out to the Ontario Principal, the OPP local detachment, to give them a copy of the judgment, and to also, point out that the judge did mention in their judgment that it is not unlikely that we will need the assistance of law enforcement if we are forced to go in and enforce the order. So with that, the recommendations that I have for members of council is that you direct staff to inform the owner of 1388 Bridge Street of the town's intention to bring the property into compliance in line with the injunction starting on June 2nd, should the owner not do it themselves. Further, that council consider the property to have hazardous materials and conditions and authorize staff to hire private contractors to clean up the site rather than asking town staff to do the work, which would also come at the expense of the services that we already provide. And that council authorize staff to deviate from the procurement bylaw by seeking 3 quotes rather than a full RFP, given the time considerations, as June is coming up quickly. And this is both very uncommon and very specific work that has to take place. And again, just to remind council that any expenses, the majority of expenses spent removing these materials will be put on the property owner's tax bill, and they will pay for it. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there any questions or comments for Mr. Grant with respect to his presentation or the report that's in front of us? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Calver.
Thank you, through your worship. These individuals that are living there, do we know where they're from? Or do you have any way of finding that out?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, Mr. Deputy Mayor, we do not. I do know that Pellis did a point in time check of homeless individuals. I don't know if they went there. And in reading their recent report, I know they asked the questions in that point in time report of where people were from, but I didn't see a chart where it was broken down where they might be from.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calver. Is there anything else? Just briefly, Mr. Grant, and the reason that we're going to go ask for some quotations rather than the regular RFP process is simply it's a time management thing. Is that this thing is going to be upon us before we could actually get the RFP done, I guess is the reason for doing it.
To you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. We are on the clock.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there anything else? We do have a recommendation that the council receive the Executive Services 1388 Bridge Street injunction report. The council directs staff to inform the owner of 1388 Bridge Street of the town's intention to bring the property into compliance in line with the injunction starting on June 2nd. Should the owner not do it themselves, that council consider the property to have hazardous materials and conditions and authorize staff to hire private contractors to clean up the site rather than asking town staff to do the work. The council authorize staff to deviate from the procurement bylaw by seeking 3 quotes rather than a full RFP, given the time considerations and the uncommon nature of the work. So we have a moved by Deputy Mayor Calver, seconded by Councillor Martin. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, opposed, motion is carried. Executive Services Routine Disclosure and Active Dissemination Policy. And Shannon, welcome. And whenever you're ready, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this policy outlines the process for how, when, and which records are released to the public. Staff are currently already disclosing records to the public when requested through a formal request under MFIPA, or when informal requests come in for records such as tax certificates or water certificates. Staff are also proactively posting certain records to the town's website or the civic web, such as agendas and minutes, master plans, procurement results, and many other records as outlined in Appendix A. But this policy aims to ensure consistency across the organization and ensure that information is made publicly available unless there's a specific reason for it not to be, and ensure that personal information is protected. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Is there any questions, comments, concerns with respect to the presentation we've heard this evening or the report that's in front of us? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the executive services routine disclosure and act dissemination policy report, and further that council direct staff to bring back the finalized policy at an upcoming council meeting for adoption. Moved by Councillor Shank, second by Councillor Davey. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? The motion is carried. Executive Services Corporate Communications Policy. And Mr. Grant, you're up again.
Yes, and this is the last report you're going to hear from me this evening. So through you, Mr. Mayor, the corporate communications policy. The purpose of this report is to seek council approval of a new policy for the town of Greater Napanee. This is part of the corporate communications mandate letter that was presented to council in, I believe, the fall of 2024, in thereabouts. So the policy itself establishes clear roles, responsibilities, and expectations for internal and external communications, ensuring that municipal communications are coordinated, accurate, consistent, and aligned with council direction. It provides expectations not only for the individual staff member we have in corporate communications, but for all members of staff, because corporate communications is at the tail end of the conveyor belt, so to speak. They do packaging and distribution, but all the various materials all the way along the conveyor belt come from different parts of the corporation. I do have a picture for that, Councillor Shank, one day that I'll send you. The policy itself outlines clarity on the roles and responsibilities of employees related to corporate communications. And this is, council isn't very clear about their interest in proactive and transparent communications, and we hear you. And this is designed to do that. Clear governance for communications activities, identifying authorized spokesperson, how staff coordinate, deliver on legislative requirements and council directions, such as what Shannon just delivered. The recognizes the legislative roles of mayor and council and rests ultimate staff accountability for corporate communications with the chief administrative officer. It is my job to make sure this gets done. Applies to all internal and external mass communications, communications targeted at large audiences. It does not apply to communications that occur in employees' regular course of business, such as emails, council reports, briefing notes. There is some reference to some of those materials in the visual identity policy, but to not be overly restrictive. I mean, people communicate all the time. This is for mass communications done by the corporation. So the recommendation here is that you receive for information the Executive Services Corporate Communications Policy Report. And further, that council direct that the draft corporate communications policy be brought back to the April 28th meeting for adoption, so that you have time to review, ask any questions you might have, because we appreciate that you've been very clear from my interview process to current times that open, proactive, and transparent communications is a priority. So at this point, I would also plug that our newsletters are starting to go out, so people should sign up for those. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns with respect to Mr. Grant's report or the presentation that's in front of us this evening? Yep, go ahead, Councillor Shank.
Yeah, Matthew, communications number one. And what you've done since you've been here has been remarkable, especially in the communications end of it. So yeah, I'll move staff recommendations, just another step forward of being clear and transparent of what we're doing and how we're doing it, because it is the taxpayers' money at all times of what we're doing it with. So yeah, great job.
Great, thanks, Councillor Shank. And we have a mover, staff recommendation from Councillor Shank. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Davey, is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motions on the floor? Yep, go ahead, Mike.
I just want to make one other comment, because somebody might interpret it the wrong way of saying about the picture. I will just do an excellent, you know what I mean? It's not that I was slow. It was the reason why is our CAO at a time gave analogy of had a picture of basically this is the boat, this is who the participants in, this is everybody individual's job about what they're doing and how they're doing, and where they should be in this boat and how it's being run. And that analogy of that boat and that picture was self-explanatory. In any time that we've had discussions or whatever, where do you lie in that boat? So when they were saying about the conveyor and about all the communication that was going through there, it wasn't that I was a little bit slow. It was because of another analogy of showing of what goes down that another path of that communication line and where the conveyor belt starts and where it ends. So I just want to make that clear. There was no derogatory remark from the CAO to Councillor Shank.
Thanks, Mike. We do appreciate the clarity on that. So, yeah, yes. Is there anything else? If not, we do have a motion on the floor for a call for the vote. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor. Opposed, motion is carried. Executive Services Draft Public Notice Policy Update. And Madam Clerk, whenever you get settled, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. You will notice right at the end of the communications policy that was just presented, it speaks about legislative advertising for public notice. So that's what this next document is a proposed update to our public notice policy. This is one of the policies that we are required to have under legislation, but the content of it is largely up to each municipality about what types of notice they want to provide and what frequency they want to provide it on. Not a massive process change from what we have been doing, but the main goal of this policy is just to lay things out very clearly, lay out which departments are responsible for getting which notices into communications. And again, our usual caveats that in an emergency situation, staff are empowered to do whatever is deemed the best and most effective way to get information to people. If there's any questions or proposed revisions, other things councilors would like to see changed, we're happy to make revisions before the next meeting. One thing we will be changing before you see this at the next meeting is with the delegation of authority bylaw that was passed for some of these minor planning applications, we'll tweak it to be that the notice is either prior to the committee meeting or prior to the date of the decision being made if it's one that is delegated down to staff. The notice provisions will remain the same, but we just want to make sure that wording is really clear. So if there's any other adjustments council would like to see or any questions, happy to take those.
Great. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Carver.
Thank you, through your worship. The draft looks amazing. I really like the very first page introduction, part C, where it says citizens should be aware that they can have an impact on decision-making processes and making appropriate submissions and representations to council. I love that wording. It's really good. No, other than that, everything looks good. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Carver. Is there anything further? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information the Executive Services Draft Public Notice Policy Update Report, and further that council directs staff to bring forward a bylaw to adopt the revised public notice policy as presented. Moved by Councillor Davey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Carver. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Next matter, Executive Services Restricted Laws Lame Duck Period. And Madam Clerk, you're up again.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as I believe everyone is well aware, we are in an election year. We may or may not become in a lame duck period at 2 points this year, either on August 22nd or on October 27th. If at any point it is not mathematically possible for 6 out of 7 members of the current council to be sitting here in the next term, then council is placed in a lame duck position and there's certain actions that are not permitted to be taken. Before you is a draft proposed bylaw to preemptively delegate some authorities for if and when we end up being placed in that position. It's very clear throughout the bylaw that if we are not ever in lame duck, none of these apply. The most important from a operations perspective, the most important one is the financial delegation that should a project that is in the budget need to be approved and comes in over budget, and council is not allowed to approve it because it's over budget, that we have that ability to have the CAO and the treasurer jointly approve that work. One other item that is new here, or possibly a change in process, is just flagging about the sale of land. What we have in the draft bylaw is that within the lame duck period, you would delegate to staff the ability to sell land only if the offer is at the publicly listed price and the land was listed for sale prior to nomination day. However, if council wants to say, no, we're just not doing land at all during the lame duck period, that is certainly your prerogative, and we're happy to take that direction.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any questions, comments, concerns with respect to Jessica's report or presentation? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Calvary. You may go where I go, but go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship. I like the idea of removing no land sale while we're in lame duck. That's kind of where I'm liking that idea. It's only for a short period of time, and maybe this council, we may not be in lame duck. So I'd like that removed if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calvert. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to suggest the same thing, that for the short period of time, I don't think we really need to engage in purchases or sale of lands. I would like to see that removed as well. And I think for the period of September, October, we could probably make do with what we have and allow the new council to make any of those decisions that they may have. So I would concur with Deputy Mayor Calvert. Is there anything else? Oops, sorry, hit the button. Deputy Mayor Calvert, did you wish to make, we do have a recommendation the council receive for information, executive services, restricted acts, lame duck period report, and further that council direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to delegate council's authority during the restricted acts period for the 2026 election as outlined. And if you wish to make an amendment that states that the authority to approve land sales agreements during the lame duck period will not be delegated, and if council is in the lame duck state, any land purchases, offers, lands valued over $50,000 must be deferred to November 2026.
Yes, I'd like to make that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calvert. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Davey. Is there any further comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Parks and Recreation and Culture Community Event Location Change. And Mr. Brown, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. So this report comes to you as town staff have received a community event application from Greater Napanee Connect for the second annual fire truck pull. The event is scheduled for Saturday, June 20th, 2026, beginning at 9 a.m. Last year, the event location was on Dundas Street, and this year, Greater Napanee Connect is proposing to host the event at the Best and Bash Arena in the southeast parking lot. Other than the location change, there are no additional requests that weren't already approved by council last year. The community events policy states that a resolution of council is required for the first event, and that the community event administrator can approve annual events if the use is reoccurring and the nature of the use remains substantially the same. So that's why staff are bringing this back to council, just to get your feedback on the location change and ultimately approve the second annual fire truck pull. The fire department equipment and staff are a planned part of the event, just as it was last year. Additional garbage cans and waste collection will also be completed by park staff. So essentially the same exact event as last year with the location change to move it to the Best and Bash Arena Southeast parking lot. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to take them.
Thanks, Chris. Is there any questions, comments, concerns from Mr. Brown with respect to the report that's in front of us or his presentation? Yep. Thanks, Councillor Shank. Councillor Shank has moved staff recommendation. Do we have a secondary, Deputy Mayor Calver? Is there any further comments, questions, concerns with respect to the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion that's on the floor, opposed, motion is carried. Parks, Recreation and Culture, Market Square and Town Hall Design Engineering Price Proposal. And Chris, you're up again.
There's one more before that, Your Worship.
Oh, I'm trying to get us out of here a little quicker, so. Oh, sorry. Parks, Recreation and Culture Community Event Application. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this community event application was received. It proposes the first annual Battle of the Atlantic Parade in Greater Napanee. The event will take place on the first Sunday in May, which is May 3rd, 2026. The intention is to have this be an annual event. This parade will follow a similar route as the Remembrance Day Parade. The Battle of the Atlantic Parade is a commemorative event honoring the service and sacrifice of Royal Canadian Navy personnel, merchant Navy sailors, and all who served during the Battle of the Atlantic. The parade is organized by the local Naval Reserve Division in partnership with the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 137 and the Royal Canadian Sea Cadets. The event includes a formal march from the Legion to the Napanee Cenotaph, a remembrance ceremony, and a return march to the Legion. Participants will form up at the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 137, 26 Mill Street East, before stepping off and proceeding along the established parade route toward the Napanee Cenotaph at 97 Thomas Street East. The parade will include uniformed Naval Reserve members, Royal Canadian Legion, Sea Cadet units, and a marching band. A formal Battle of the Atlantic ceremony will begin at 11 a.m. at the Cenotaph, including wreath laying, an act of remembrance, and brief remarks. So really all they need in terms of resources is the municipal road use and the closing of those roads. The event requires temporary road closures along the parade route to ensure the safe movement of the participants and the spectators. A temporary rolling road closure will be coordinated by the OPP to escort the movement of the parade. The OPP in our meetings have recommended that we not use Center Street, so the parade route did change a little bit. And you can see in the report where the parade route will be, and there's also a map attached to the report as well. Operationally, only a few hours of staff time are required to set up and tear down road barriers and pylons near the Legion where the parade will commence. It's a rain or shine event. It's basically following what we already do for our Remembrance Day Parade. So in terms of planning and resources, pretty minimal. All citizens in the local area interested in naval history and wishing to commemorate those who lost their lives during the Battle of the Atlantic are welcome to attend, and happy to answer any questions council might have.
Thanks, Mr. Brown. Is there any questions, comments, concerns with respect to the reports in front of us or the presentation? Go ahead, Councillor Shank.
This is just a little bit of a tidbit. A long-term resident of our municipality, Captain Davey, retired naval captain, commanded numerous vessels, subs to everything. So he's got every type of direct decoration possible. If somebody would reach out and talk to him, I know he's got a wealth of experience, especially when he did his whole term or his whole career was in the Navy. So he'd be a huge wealth. And his son was a captain also. He looks after Halifax Harbor right now. So there is somebody that's really well esteemed and he's a graduate of RMC also. So it'd be that's be one of the first person I would talk to about naval battles would be somebody like that who's been there, done that. All right, thank you.
Oops, sorry. Thanks, Mike. Is there anything else? If not, we do have a recommendation that council receive for information, Parks, Recreation, Culture, Community Event Application Report, and further that council approve the Battle of the Atlantic Parade in accordance with the Community Events Policy. Moved by Councillor Davey, second by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed, motion is carried. Park Recreation and Culture, Market Square and Town Hall Design and Engineering Price Proposal. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Your Worship. On February 24th, Council received a report regarding the procurement strategy for the Town Hall Market Square renovation project. Since then, town staff have been working with Gordian, the awarded supplier of the job order contracting program through Canoe Procurement of Canada. Gordian works with regional contractors to develop a scope of work for each project. Belcon Design Builders Limited out of Belleville represents our region and have worked closely with the town and Gordian to present a price proposal for design and engineering services. The proposal values relate specifically to the pre-construction design phase and not the construction phase. The proposal values outline the cost of professional services such as architectural, engineering, drafting, and project management. The price proposals are split into two separate projects, the first one being the Town Hall interior renovation, focusing on the ground floor here at Town Hall. The second being the Market Square canopy or self-supported structure for market activities outside of Town Hall, between the back of Town Hall and Center Street. The pre-construction scope includes a number of things, which is essentially what drives the value up, and they're listed in the report there. Attached to the report are itemized design and engineering phase costs for both projects. The proposal value totals $97,046 when combining both projects. Once approved, Belcon Design Builders Limited will begin the design phase immediately. As part of the design process, the design team will review the executive summary of all the public consultation that was created by the Market Square Advisory Committee. The design team will also meet with stakeholders, including but not limited to the Market Square Advisory Committee, the Heritage Committee, the Arts Committee, the Rotary Club of Napanee, Lennox and Addington Chamber of Commerce. Once design and engineering work is completed, and every stakeholder and different group has had a chance to kind of weigh in and provide their feedback, the final plans, conceptual drawings, and construction costs will be presented back to council for their approval. So looking at the financials, the Town Hall ground floor renovation, $45,656 for design and engineering. The self-supported canopy for market activities out back, $51,390 for a total, as I've said already, $97,046. The Market Square Properties Reserve Fund has a current balance of $675,000. And following previous direction from council, staff recommend the design and engineering costs be funded from this reserve fund. That pretty much wraps it up, so I will hand it back to council for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Is there any questions, comments, concerns for Chris? Go ahead, Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, this is just to hire a design contractor? Like, we're not giving them any specific details of what we want, are we, in this situation here? Are we just approving spending that money to hire this company or whoever it is?
Through your worship to Councillor Martin. So this money is to hire a design build contractor that will, and this money will get us a design and engineering to set us up to have conceptual drawings, plans, and to be able to finalize what we are going to build in the construction phase. So this will put us in a position to know exactly what we're going to be, what it's going to look like and what it's going to be.
Okay, so, but we're not giving them any beforehand instruction on what we're looking for, or are we? Because my main concern is, because I sit on the Heritage Committee, for example, and the Heritage Committee has a responsibility to look after this grand old gal here. So I just want to make sure that the Heritage Committee is given the capacity to have input in what goes on in here and outside. So that's my main concern as far as the Heritage Committee is concerned. So I just want to make sure, like, I'm sure all the committees are going to want to have their input, but my concern, like I say, because I sit on the Heritage Committee, and we want to make sure that it fits into the heritage designation of the building. So, yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, through your worship, and to clarify, and I apologize if I wasn't clear. So yeah, that's what the design and engineering phase will do, is it'll finalize the plans for what it's going to be. And as I mentioned, the Heritage Committee has a role in that. They'll be able to look at those design plans and be able to provide input and feedback on what they like, what they don't like, where they would like to see changes. And ultimately, once we've consulted and go through this design and engineering phase, we'll get to a place where the Market Square Advisory Committee will make a recommendation to council on this is what we want to see. And that will also come with full construction costing. So you'll have an opportunity to see what we've designed and engineered and what it's going to look like, including conceptual drawings and some renderings, and also know what that's going to cost to build. And so the Heritage Committee certainly will be consulted. This money that we will spend will allow a designer to work with our stakeholder groups and get feedback and back and forth to be able to design ultimately what we're looking to build, which is a community space, a flexible space, for arts and culture, entertainment, and all those types of things. The only thing that the design builders at this point have been given is that executive summary that was created by the Market Square Advisory Committee, which also has the Heritage Committee's input from the public consultation. So what they a flexible community space being able to use by all different types of groups in our community, and we have the ability to work with them to design what we want.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. That's all I need. I just need a little assurance, rather, that the Heritage Committee is going to be involved in, their opinions on what's taking place in the building. So, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Yep, great. Thank you, Councilor Martin. Go ahead, Councilor Shank.
Chris, you're going to have to help me out because you do this a lot better than I do. When I was looking through what their costing is the engineering and Belcon pre-construction, and it says project manager for tasks not included in the construction task catalog as directed by the owner only. It was in a couple of areas, structural engineering and pre-construction. So the way I read that is it's not for the construction, like, because you're not building it, but for the design and that. And they have that factor 1.32, so I don't know. They're doing it $160 an hour and they call on 40 hours to do it. So Chris, Mike, explain something to me. I'm not an engineer.
Yeah, through your worship. Great question, Councilor Shank. So essentially the construction task catalog is what they have to go by when they start to calculate the construction costs.
Okay.
And so that's where that public tendering comes in. So when Belcon is looking at the design and engineering, we're essentially paying for the services of those architects and those designers and those drafters. That's what we're paying for. So they're not in the task catalog per se. Okay. So we're essentially paying for their services because they're not actually building anything, but they're spending time with us, developing, designing, and that's what we're paying for, is essentially their professional services.
Okay, I don't have a ring on my finger. Sorry.
Thanks, Mike. Is there anything further? We do have a recommendation. Council received for information, Parks, Recreation, and Culture, Market Square, Town Hall, Design, Engineering, Price, Proposal, Report, and further that council accept the design and engineering price and proposals as drafted, and further that council approve the purchase of $97,046.33 for design and engineering services to be funded by the Market Square Properties Reserve Fund. Moved by Councilor Shank, second by Councilor Davey. Is there no further comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thanks, Chris. It's exciting to see this project move forward. It's I think it's going to be an exciting summer for us, so thanks for that. Financial and IT services loan application for wastewater pollution control plant. Ms. Hamill, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this evening, council has a report in front of them regarding the financing required for our wastewater treatment plant. So this is kind of the next very big step in this exciting project that our community is undertaking. What we're looking for is approval for a borrowing bylaw through Infrastructure Ontario or OILC, Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation. So IO is a Ontario Crown agency responsible for supporting the planning, financing, and delivery of public infrastructure across the province. They do have a specific funding stream called HUE, is our acronym for this, which is Housing Enabling Water, I'm drawing a blank. Investment? I think it's investment. So there are specific kind of perks that stream of this funding has available to us. There have longer terms, for example. We can do a 40-year term. There are reduced interest rates, which is great to hear, and some different things that are outlined in the report under the specific stream of HUE. So right now, what we're looking for is simply to have our short-term construction loan. So this will allow the municipality to be able to draw down funds as needed through the duration of the building period of this project. So we're looking to do a construction loan for $24,500,000, which is very closely in line with the financing agreement that was presented to council earlier, which had up to a maximum of $25 million that we will be looking to finance over the period to be determined at a later date. So we are looking simply to execute what that financing strategy presented to council previously was. And generally, this is going to act like a line of credit for the municipality. So basically, we'll draw down the funds as we need them, not more, not less, and we'll only pay the interest that it would accrue on the portion that we've drawn down. We pay the interest monthly on the indicative rate, which was 2.35. That rate changes weekly, so it's going to be a moving interest rate, and that will be the rate that is applied over the term of the construction period. Once the construction is completed, we'll come back to council with a different borrowing bylaw and financing agreement to roll the actual loan into a debenture, and that's when we'll set the terms of the agreement. So we'll look to council to say, do you want to do this over 30 years, over 40 years? We'll confirm what the rates are at that point in time and how long we want to lock those rates in. We have some flexibility in that if we want to lock them in for 5 years or 10 years. Those are the decisions that will come once we roll it into a debenture once construction is completed. So all of the details of kind of what the financial impacts of the overall long-term debt are included in the next steps portion of the report for council's awareness, but you can generally see what we're looking at there. We're ballpark around $1.4 million in our annual payments that we'll be looking at in the long term, but for now we're just looking at securing the short-term construction loan to help us cash flow during this period of time. I'll also note that we will continue to use our internal funds and are grateful to have the support of our federal and provincial government on this project as well, who have advanced some of their funding to us to be able to fund their portion of the project along the way. So we will be using those funds as well, and we'll just be drawing down what we need as we go along. I'm happy to take any questions that council has on this. We're really excited to kind of get over this next milestone in this project and looking forward to moving forward.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. Is there any questions, comments, concerns with respect to the report that's in front of us or the presentation from Ms. Hannah? Go ahead, Councillor.
This would be more for Mike or you. March 2028, they're saying that it'll be all done. Yeah, they've got a ton of work to by the time I just didn't want to see where it was going to lie in time wise. So March 2028, this is when you're going to have to decide the new council will have to decide what debenture they're going to do, and shorter the time, higher the payout. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Once again, it's another exciting time for our municipality. This has been a long time coming, and it's going to provide an opportunity for our municipality to grow, and everyone should be excited about that. So thanks. Is there anything else? Seeing nothing, we do a recommendation that council receive for information financial and IT services report, loan application for the WPCP report, and further that council authorize the treasurer to submit an application to the Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation, OILC, on behalf of the Greater Napanee for financing capital works for the wastewater pollution control plant in the amount of $24,500,000. And further that council authorize temporary borrowing from OILC to meet the expenditures in connection with such capital work. And further that council authorize long-term borrowing for such capital work through the issue of a debenture to OILC. And further that council authorize the mayor and the treasurer to negotiate, enter into, and execute and delivery of the financing agreement with OILC. Moved by Councillor Davey, seconded by Councillor Martin. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? The motion is carried. Growth and infrastructure plow truck purchase report. And Mr. Nobes, I think you're going to speak to that.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Council. So this evening, staff are bringing forward a recommendation for Council to approve the award of a 2026 Western Star 47X tandem axle plow truck to Abby Schmidt Group for just under $500,000 plus an additional $5,000 to upfit it with lights, cameras, etc. So this has been consistent with recent plow truck purchases. We use the canoe procurement method as we have previously. The overall net cost to the town would be just over $450,000. The budget had $480,000, so we're about $30,000 under budget. What staff are recommending, based on the two quotes that we received back, there's a price difference of $400 between the two units that were spec'd. And we're recommending going with the higher priced item being slightly higher than the low bid submission of just over $400. But the timeline and the delivery is the determining factor in staff's recommendation. So we would get this unit in September 2026 versus June 2027. So what that would amount to is a savings in rental fees of approximately $21,000 over a winter season. So paying $400 to save $21,000 and get a truck far sooner is ultimately why staff are making that recommendation. This would be an ELP body, so we would have about an even split between Viking and ELP bodies. We're looking to continue to stock items for Viking or ELP and would like to avoid introducing a third. So we only ended up receiving back a Viking and an ELP setup through Canoe anyway. So it aligns with how we're stocking our equipment today. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Ultimately, what this would be replacing is a 2011 truck that has had a number of safety-related issues, and it is very much needing to be pulled off the road. It's in a very bad way. So we're looking to make this order and have it in time for next season.
Great, thanks, Mr. Nobes. Go ahead, Deputy Markauer.
Thank you, through your worship. Yes, that poor old 1105 is, thank God they've extended some of the boundaries on it over the time. My only question is, and I mean, this is great, everything's working the way it's supposed to work, and staff done a great job using the Canoe process. So this one's being promised to us for September 26th. What happens if it's not September 26th? Is there anything in the contract for reduction in price or whatever, if they're 2-3 months late, or how does that work?
Your worship, I'm not 100% certain on that, but I can follow up as soon as early tomorrow morning when I can get those details. I know we've had a number of recently previous plow truck purchases. The date has been pushed out based on timing of the truck coming in from manufacturer to get outfitted with the body. I'm not 100% certain if there's a reduction in cost based on that. That's what they. It's not a hard commitment; it's an estimate. So I'm guessing there's likely not much flexibility in that to reduce the cost. But given the widespread between a June estimate and a September estimate, it was pretty clear cut in staff's mind on making that recommendation.
No, 100%. That's for sure. I just remember seeing an email earlier today for trucks we've had on order for a couple of years. So I'm excited that they can actually, put an estimate date in the same year we're ordering a truck. That's a win.
It is. And through your worship, so luckily this truck that they're speccing is one that came in through a batch order through Abby Schmidt. So it was almost more or less on the lot. The chassis is ready to be upfitted. So that's why we're lucky with this window and to get it much sooner than previous orders.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Deputy Mayor Carver. Thank you, Mr. Knowles. Is there anything else for Mr. Knowles with respect to his presentation or his report? If not, we do have a recommendation that the council receive for information the Growth and Infrastructure Services plow truck purchase report, and further that council approve the ordering of one new 2026 Western Star 47X tandem axle plow truck from AB Schmidt Group for the sum of $497,106.20, including taxes, and further that council approve the use of $5,000 to purchase and install remaining items to outfit the 2026 Western Star 47X tandem axle plow truck for use including two-way radio AVL system, rust proofing, and remaining 360-degree lights. Moved by Councillor Davey, second by Councillor Shank. If there's no further comments, questions, or concerns, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Bylaws. The first bylaw we're going to defer, which is 2026-0037 to establish tax rates. We're going to defer it, I think, probably till the next meeting, Madam Clerk. Is that the plan for that?
Through your worship, that's correct. There were just some minor typos that were identified that we're still just looking to work through to make sure we have decimal points that will work correctly in our taxation system. So it will be back here for the next meeting, right?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, so we'll be back on the next council meeting. We're just sorting out some decimal points in 6 versus 8 versus software.
It makes all the sense in the world, Alan, so thank you. Bylaw number 2026-0038 to authorize temporary borrowing. We'll look for a motion, put that on the floor. Moved by Councillor Davey, second by Councillor Shank. Ready for a second and finally pass this 14th day of April 2026. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Bylaw number 2026-0039 to amend bylaw 07-62 planning application fees. Look for motion put on the floor. Deputy Mayor Carver, second by Councillor Martin. Ready for a second and finally pass this 14th day of April 2026. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Information reports from members. Do any members want to provide any information or updates with respect to external boards, committees that they have? Seeing none. Inquiries. Do any members of council have any inquiries of staff that we can task them with for the next couple of weeks? Seeing none. Notice the motions. I don't believe we have any notice the motions, Madam Clerk. New business. I don't believe we have any new business that I'm aware of. Announcements. Does anyone wish to make any announcements this evening? Seeing none. CAO remarks. Mr. Grant, did you wish to make any remarks this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, I just wanted to put a thank you out to the team in bylaw, the fire department, growth and infrastructure, particularly public works, for all the work that they've done with the issue we've had to deal with 1388 Bridge Street. That has been a trying, difficult circumstance. And I know the team has had to endure quite a bit in trying to manage that issue. And I just wanted them to know that I'm grateful.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Grant. And I think it's safe to say that members of council are also grateful for the work that they did on that file. I know it's outside the box, I think, of what we would expect bylaw to do, but they've done a magnificent job along with other members of our staff, the fire department included. So thank you for bringing that up. It gets us into the forward calendar. Is anything in that forward calendar that any members of council would like to ask any questions about or make any inquiries about or anything like that? Seeing none. Which gets us to look for a motion for the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the town of Greater Napanee. Moved by Councillor Davey, second by Councillor Shank. Ready first, second, and finally pass this 14th day of April 2026. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. A motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Carver. No further comments, questions, concerns. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, folks, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.